Brian Spellman, and my short story is called The McAn Man from www.lulu.com/Brian_Spellman. Deep inside the LA County Medical Examiner Coroner's office, it is cold, smells of aerosol, formaldehyde, and strange disinfectants. It is downstairs, downtown, concrete and surrounded by indifferent freeways and urban commotion. It is within proximity of the courthouse, police headquarters, and jail. It is where 5 girls named Keiko, Grace, Claire, Letitia, and Rachel spent 5 dead days revealing their last chapters, desperately trying to say the same name. It is so. In other parts of town, each of the girls were discovered. It is where we begin to tell of homicide for this composite story. Wormy mud graves sidle a clue. 2 licked off red popsicle sticks, tied in a snug cross by a shoelace. Probably tourniquet ligature to the truthful account, thinks Boggy Marsh Task Force. Tourniquet here does not mean Boy Scouts first aid, but rather a killer's neck instrument. Detective Dremel is perplexed. The serialist leaves the seemingly innocent signature, like something one might find at a glum child's pet cemetery. Instead, it's a disposable kill kit. Dremel has this and many clues, too many to interpret correctly. Where to begin? Crafty, the killer is highly organized, choosy with detail and routine. Even his mistakes are intentional, teasers. He leaves saliva deliberately, confirming that neither he nor any relatives are on a DNA felon's database. DNA comes back with a partial profile, indicating the male killer's ancestral strain is several generations Scandinavian and blonde. From cruel Viking stock, pirate extraction that once pillaged crown treasures and raped fair English maidens, Dremel might daydream, building upon his good cop versus evil animosity. Is his modern marauder a first-generation American raiding Los Angeles? The popsicles are always cherry, and all victims prepubescent girls, virgins. Is his a tacky sarcasm? Each among the located bodies has been deflowered with a shoehorn, left inserted. Dremel considers the popsicle shoelace link, like branding a killer through his commercialism. Dremel visits Shoe Hospital, a local cobbler, to speak to its proprietor, who we shall name Perseus Swade. David, what brings LA's finest detective in? No less during morning hours, when we're both supposed to be busy. The killing business, is it? Afraid so, Mr. Swade, afraid so. Homicide's an unrelenting on human souls as pavement is on shoe soles. David, you're holding something in clear cellophane with rubber gloves. Real evidence? Privileged info. You know the routine, Perseus. Here you go, old codger. Put on the specs and render me your expertise. For that lace, I don't need glasses. The only crosshatch weave that came in cotton. They used to break and people would retie the loose ends. But not this lace. Weird. It looks new, brand new, like it was cared for over years. I'd like to run it through my fingers, like copying a feel. Many customers were either too cheap or too poor to buy replacement laces, given the economy status for budget gents and their boys who wore those shoes. That lace belongs to Tom McAn dress shoes. No doubt about it, David. Can you date it, Mr. Swade? Well, not to a year of sale, of course, but cotton laces were discontinued in 1967. After that, and up until now, Tom McAn uses rayon. The same black and brown colors then are the only 2 options today. You can buy them at Sears, Walmart, and Amazon nowadays, Detective Dremel. But the early 60s, that was the age of wingtips and Tom McAn, before counterculture styles upended conservative McAn branding. Those shoes are for Eisenhower squares, David, for old duffers, fogies lost by the times. Can't stay for family schmoozing, gotta get a beat on the bad guys, Mr. Swade. Can I interest you in a can of kiwi polish for the missus? Boots. The secret policeman's ball, events like that. Given the discontinuance of cotton laces, the industrious detective datelines his hunter as age mid-60s, minimum, and progressively doubtful beyond that. This fits with the use of a shoehorn instead of direct sexual contact. No semen or pubic hair is found at any marshes where dogs locate the petite and pungent cadavers. No charm bracelets, rings, or bows are found, reported missing by the girl's moms. He's a collector with a shoe fetish. We have a report today that 10-year-old Rachel Mendez did not arrive home from school yesterday. Rachel attends Monroe Elementary School in Eagle Rock. Reporting there is for our own Nancy Rutledge. Nancy, what further information can you give us, our viewers, about this troubling disappearance? Well, Barbara, we know that Rachel didn't show up yesterday at her YMCA swimming practice, where she regularly walks about a half mile from Monday to Friday. Sometimes she makes the trip with her two friends, seen standing here with me. And you two girls say Rachel walks with you to the Y every day? Well, not every day, only when we meet up near the lockers. JC and me were never late yesterday, so we went ahead without Rachel. So she's JC. What's your name? Carol. Come home, Rachel. We're sorry we missed you. We miss you. Thanks, girls. Barbara, with me here is Joan Rule from Missing Persons. Detective Rule, what do you know about this disappearance? Rachel has been missing for less than 24 hours. We're still trying to locate relatives who might have picked her up. At this early stage, with no signs of foul play, we're placing energies in the direction of people known by Rachel. We're speaking with teachers and students as well as bus drivers and YMCA personnel. Detective Rule, are you hopeful? We have to be hopeful. Rachel and her family depend on us. We plan to be thorough in efforts to find Rachel healthy and in good spirits. Thank you, Detective. Barbara, do you have Rachel's school picture to project on your screen? Here she is, adorable. Bob, says Barbara. Nancy, have you spoken to Mr. and Mrs. Mendez yet? I have. They're considering a reward, but have yet to announce it. Meanwhile, they posted a website at rachelmendez.com to keep LA informed. Posters are being circulated near the school and along the route towards the Y. Nancy, has anyone looked along yesterday's route for any of Rachel's school books or missing jewelry? Barbara, I'm told that Rachel's swim team is going to retrace the route by walking close together. Their gym teacher is going to chaperone the girls. Oh, that's a thoughtful gesture, says Barbara. I have nothing more to update for now. This is Nancy Rutledge, reporting back to you, Barbara Lang, in the studio. Bodies are partially processed by the killer after death. Chipped fingernails left like little defeated sabers, yet locks are shampooed with Redken, a repair brand for gnarled, yanked follicles favored by kinky-haired adults. Bite marks, buck-tooth evidences are not carved out. Why filth-infected drop sites? With numerous hints at symbolism, Dremel wonders if marshes indicate prurience, a dirty self-conscience. The detective knows that mixed clues are intentional for communicating chaos, known in FBI parlance as a spitball, flung up the task force. Dremel doesn't miss much, but he's losing on the scoreboard. He also knows the killer studies the state's case. Clues are released to the public with utmost calculation. Good and bad guy learn and fathom from each other. Detective Dremel. Yes, Chief Ham. I want you to have a word with Vice Detective Larkey. He may share insights with you about our serial situation by way of his expertise in perversion. His connection to street gossip by social reprobates may assist to break open your case. Larky's an asshole. He was back in the academy, and he no doubt is still now, Chief. Make an effort, Dave. The mayor's been busting my balls over this scab, whoever he turns out to be. There's Lucky. I gotta go, Dremel. Hey, Dremel, Are you preparing another Boggy Marsh consolation speech, says Larky, in mushy affect for the family? What did you say? Your short rope just got thinner. Let's get this over with, Larky. I agreed to speak with you, sewer man, to appease the hierarchy. Tell me what your important tip might be. I can't wait to hear it. Short rope or short drawstring? Your guy does have a redeeming quality. I see the roster of victim names spans the races and ethnicities. At least we know he's a multiculturalist. Larky, I should have figured you came to Needle. I should have also guessed why you wormed your way into vice. You're turned on by the Cindy's vermin. You couldn't attract a wife to raise a family, so you settled for keeping company like yourself. But you'll never slither your way onto my task force. Your scruples stink too much. Dremel, leer at your wife for me. Larky, she got over you a long time ago. After all, she was right. She deserved better. The two former academy classmates separate without altercation. Everybody in this task force knows the heritage distribution of victims. The perpetrator likely prioritizes opportunity versus risk over bloodlines. Attacks occur throughout different ethnic neighborhoods of LA Unified. No children are safe. Cops span idealists to cynics. Dremel has officers from several squads on his task force, including homicide, public relations, vice, and missing persons. Larky soured when Dremel rejected his application to join the team. For Larky, membership meant a boost in resume and overtime. He's a ruthless and selfish pragmatist, nothing more. Detective Dremel, everybody in the Boggy Marsh task force is present and accounted for. The actors you've asked for to participate are rehearsed and ready. They'll read from the script smoothly. We can record the RachelMendez.com blog site upload whenever you're ready, says Media Secretary Sheila Wombat. Ready, Sheila. Count us down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Action. Okay, gang. What do we know about our guy? We've determined that he's highly intelligent, organized, and in his 60s, says Dremel. What else? The camera slowly pans over the officers and actors, all wearing casual clothes. He's probably a churchgoer or has some ties to organized religion. He may have been betrayed by clergy as a youth. Why so, Officer O'Malley, says Dremel. The crucifix's drop sites may be his way of self-exoneration, an eye for an eye towards congregation members, says Actor Officer O'Malley. Actor Officer Gomez reads from a script, part of his script. But our sources indicate that Rachel didn't attend catechism or any Sunday school service. Isn't that right? That is right, Officer Gomez, says Dremel. She's not part of the man's congregation, so secular as far as we know. Actress Officer Akira says, is this man addicted to homicide, Detective Dremel? I mean, the span of killings can range from 2 to 4 years. Addiction doesn't sound likely for a man in his 60s, does it, Detective Dremel? No, Officer Akira, it doesn't. Our man is stronger than that, quite capable of letting Rachel go to prove he's in charge, says Dremel. I hope he sees this recording to reconsider his power and advantage. He's beaten us, has nothing more to prove. Dremel looks once into the camera and then walks out of the room. He is followed first by the speaking actors and then the Boggy Marsh Task Force members. The camera slowly pans to the auditorium door as the last officer passes through. 5 seconds elapse. Cut. It's a wrap, says Detective Dremel. Says Secretary Sheila. The video is short, quickly reviewed, copy, edited, and delivered to the blog site, for which a special software monitors the address location of all hits. Marshes are few in LA, a desert climate and terrain. Between November and March, an iffy rain season saturates, mist over, or leaves arid Hanson Dam, Balboa Lake, Toluca Lake, the Japanese Gardens, and Marsh Park. Years can pass before a healthy winter rain quenches LA. When saturated with El Nino rains, little girls turn up, rotting in the wetlands. The killer is patient, waiting for cooperative weather patterns to accommodate his unacceptable ritual. A diminished libido allows for more stealth at less risk. The predator returns to scenes of his drops. Bodies have been repositioned, as forensics indicate a shifting of coagulated blood. Normally, dead blood prioritizes like a soothing lotion from gravity, settling the bottom of a corpse. The McAn man takes time to study his accomplishments as bodies decompose. Dremel reasons that crosses are consistent with faith malignancy. The killer believes afterlife means corpses have death, souls, opportunities for necrophiliacs to violate religious sites, vent hatred at victims. Those sexually assaulted, the girls have been dressed post-mortem, yet not in their own clothes. The killer picks long paisley gowns, hippie code for peace apparel. Dremel surmises that while savage, the killer wants his victims to display like trophy artworks with an odd dignity, as if discovering a rotting corpse clothed is goth, or Visigoth, sensual. Dremel deduces that the killer-victim relationships are personal and that they spent time together, conversing throughout the tortuous ordeal. Vile speculations by Detective Dremel lead him to believe his killer feels neither shame nor pity, only exhilaration. Dremel feels the pursuit like trying to outrun his own flu. It never leaves. Hello, Detective Dremel. Who might this be? Hi, Dave. This is Joan Rule. Yes, Joan, I expected this conversation. We never call about smelling the cliches, so to pun, only missing children and found cadavers. We need to sound off our donut sirens more often to socialize by taking cop liberties. Enough banter, do you think? We have another kid serial victim? It's nearly 3 days. The departure was similar to others. The age is within range of boggy marsh. Again, consistent. Have you put an undercover cop at the local swamps and ponds, Dave? I've assigned a dozen on a 2-week patrol. I'd love to catch this bully glutton at his drop site. Of course, that runs second to apprehending him before another girl turns up victim. Joan, I know it's hideous to root for another body to capture a fiend, but do you think that I'm insane for having thought it? Dave, the predicament and its stress means you're human. Give yourself some leeway. Every private thought and bad word is not food for media frenzy, even in the day of social media. Media is the subset of social media, says Dremel. You're ever the clever, David. Joan, this killer may be reckless, but he's not careless up to now. You never know what's next. Any word on the relative front? We've contacted them all, both intimate and estranged. The Mendez clan answers as confused and concerned. I can only query so far before interrogation leads to alienating Mr. and Mrs. Mendez. I'd rather wait for Rachel to appear before doing that. We'll stay in touch, Joan. Over. Over and out, Donut Man. After maggots and rancid aroma overwhelm as would a leftover steak bone purposely tossed into a neglected wastepaper basket, the killer licks and seals a postal note with an India ink thumbprint bearing his scar to local KTLA television. Their mailroom, notified by a wall bulletin, stares with horror, recognizes the motif. The child killer struck again. It must be the missing Mendez girl. Call Dremel. Dremel is given general vicinity where the latest victim can be retrieved. The detective might brainstorm for desperate links. A thumbprint. Tom McAn. Tom Thumb? Dremel's mind rotates like a child's top in futile circles. Clue plenty, but no closer. The public knows about these sparse sequential homicides having one culprit, but while appalled, his timeline stretches out like a slow, irritable yawn, leaving Hollywood scandals to overtake media and anesthetize into cold case thinkers all but the task force and victim families. Meanwhile, LA, transient, grows ignorant until each new serial murder becomes news. Bodies are all moved from the crime scenes wherever attacks occur and subsequent processing takes place, each to a different marsh. There is plenty of physical evidence, even with water sopping. Each victim is located within a week of disappearance. Dremel listens to and smells the putrefying swamps. There's a sweetness that leads deeper into the woods, like a Venus flytrap entices its prey with nectar. A posse of bloodhounds leads police, at first haphazard, and then hones into the sweetness. The unit of police persons all hit a nauseating stench wall together. Dremel cups finger to thumb and whistles, signaling other officers to proceed with caution and scan the ground and leave for footprint activity. Flies and arroyo toads sound off discordant distress while officers intrude and interpret their space. Dogs howl, pulsating adrenaline. We'll conjecture a boggy marsh wooded walk-in that might converse like this. Detective Dremel, are you sure that modeling goodwill Tom McAn's and sucking a cherry popsicle is a sound idea? What did you call this technique? Simulation, new guy. Officer Petty, is it? You never know what might come to mind when going through a killer's motions. A clue might click my thoughts to a motive towards one of his behaviors. Besides, we know from a plaster caster shoe print impression that the killer wore shoe size 13. We even know from previous imprints that he walked with bow legs. I wear a 9 so I won't trample his muddy steps. I'll pocket the cherry sticks and not throw them near the crime scene. Otherwise, I want to think like him. So don't disturb me with your redundant questions and whisper from now on. There she is. Halt, everybody, says Dremel. Shit, we stake it out and he slips us anyway. I'm going to write up some sleepy cop for this. Okay, forensics team in. Everybody else fan out and tape off a perimeter to the crime scene and keep any nosy bystanders away. Look for the crucifix. Officer Chummy, call the coroner to begin procedures. Where's that photographer? And Petty, what are you doing chewing gum at a crime scene? Bag that wad right now. Rival rookie officers chuckle at Petty. Beyond that, new guy, you bicker like my goddamn wife. Dremel's wife might warn that simulation screws with his head in marital relations. The detective probably can't get it up. After all, his killer can't. To Dremel, sacrifices must be made. His killer is sexually frustrated to a point of torture and murder. A crabby wife is little to endure. Struggling to compartmentalize like his profession killer, Dremel confuses about the murders while tying his own shoes. One morning, alone before his vanity mirror, Dremel might say, talking to yourself is okay. Answering back is risky. Levity protects sanity. We may presume a credible lawman has quirks. Suspects of behavioral profile and living proximity come and go, all failing DNA match. Pedophiles from jurisdictions around the globe aren't necessarily registered with Megan's Law, the California Database Access. One such indignant suspect protests to a titillated media with, "Sure, I like girls, but I don't hate them." Mothers gasp. Of all places, LA's stand-up club, the Laugh Factory, dubs this killer a Girl Scout. The term spreads like used motor oil, coating a city. Dremel and his team look for a sociable loner who meshes with children but maintains solvency through spotty employment, a graveyard shift, or security guard worker, an overnight parking attendant, someone with daytime schedule flexibility. Don't bother tracing the call, David. Did you really think I could let her go and end our fun game? I do plan to retire from the serial sweepstakes now, but you never know when. I want to leave you hanging on a thread. I hope that I've taught you a lesson, which is your last hint. Goodbye, Detective Dremel. Call ends. I hope that I've taught you a lesson. Or is it hanging from a thread? Taught, T-A-U-T, you a lesson, Dremel says to himself. Autopsies all reveal eyeball hemorrhaging. Confirming cause of death is asphyxiation from ligature strangulation, extended suffocation by tightening and release. A frenetic struggle precedes this sometime, somewhere. Dremel knows that all child victims are not with relatives or friends when encountered by the killer. As the girls are last seen by classmates during daylight with no reports of a tussle, he suspects that they are at first seduced, then later ambushed. Schools ring the cheery bell to each new day as noisy children scurry in all directions with poor recall and sensory commotion. Nobody remembers anything. It's as if the joy of school runs out interference for the trap. It's during pandemonium when victims disappear. None of the victims knew one another. All attended different schools within the district, all during different years. Dremel feels close, touches together sweaty fingertips, and hyperventilates over this. It's November, a rainy day as meteorologists forecast an El Nino season. David Eugene Dremel sighs for his city. Okay, gang, it's time to clear off your desk. You're going to take my surprise quiz. In unison, about 25 fourth graders moan, "Oh, Mr. Skid, not a quiz." Yes, a little math quiz that will count towards your quarterly grades. I'll record your marks for Mrs. Budd when she returns from her flu bug. Why can't we wait for Mrs. Budd to quiz us when she's ready? After all, you're only a substitute this week, says Mark. That's because you wouldn't be surprised, young man. Think about it. Have any of you been quizzed by a substitute? Other substitutes tell me that all they do is police and babysit you fine, young, logical minds. It seems to me that this doesn't show respect for you as being anything more than immature and irresponsible children. Wouldn't you rather be respected as trustworthy pre-adolescents? No, choruses the classroom. A pre-what? Asked Michael. Trust me, gang, this quiz will feel good. It will work like a math inoculation against laziness and bad classroom attitude. You'll be smarter for it, ready to surprise Mrs. Budd with your in-progresses. What's in? Inoculation is a small shot to prevent disease. You've had many of them by your age. Think of my quiz in a similar way, or an attitude and intelligence tool to make you smarter. You'll thank me after. For now, no more talking. You have 20 minutes to complete it. Turn the paper face down and remain silent after you're done. I'll walk by and collect them when time's up. A uniformed janitor wearing what appears an orange furlough jumpsuit for parolees enters the room, making his way to Mr. Skit's desk side. He empties a small lavender basket into a gray barrel and leaves the room without speaking or meeting eyes with anyone. The quiz is 10 questions in basic multiplication and long division. The pupils spent the last year's quarter practicing this level of arithmetic and are already proficient. Though nobody speaks, many presume that Mr. Skid is unaware of their current ability. They breeze through the quiz, some taking time to check it for sloppiness and careless mistakes. As the minutes log, more and more students decide to turn over their papers. Competitive prize displayed from quick, rehearsed minds. Finished children stare at the classroom walls. Portrait posters from famous presidents indoctrinate students. Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln, along with photocopies of reformers, Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, and Betty Friedan give children a feeling of belonging and durability. Students' artworks adorn the walls. Palm trees, flowers done in watercolor, and cut and paste collages of National Geographic and Marvel Comics pictures. The classroom conveys an ambiance of comfort and safety. Inside school is safe, outside school is not. Okay, 18 minutes have passed and everybody's paper appears to be face down. Today's new word is precocious. Does anybody know what it means? No? Has anybody ever heard it used? Well, all of your parents should have applied it to all of you. It means advanced for one's age. I've not had a class where everybody finished my quiz within the allotted time. Now I'll collect them. Show me something even greater than smarts. Show me discipline. Don't talk among yourselves while I grade your papers. I'll be about 10 minutes. Mr. Skit grades the easy quizzes hurriedly. He keeps looking aside to the room's only window, an adult chest-high inset from the double doors that open to the hallway. He's wary of the custodian, whom he didn't recognize throughout the week. Is it possible an ex-con near children attending a public school? He exchanges glances between making notation in Mrs. Budd's ring notebook and the window, where pestering worry over the senior janitor won't leave him. Children exchange glances and will soon trade notes and eventually whisper and chatter again, 10 minutes or not. Mr. Skit rubs palms together on his pant leg. After 6 minutes, precocious or not, he is done. He stands up, holding the papers in the order he collected them, and begins walking the creaking hardwood floors among the rows of seated students who begin chatter. Mr. Skit makes eye contact with most students, pausing to smile. He may not see anybody from this group again, at least not together. Tomorrow, with a new assignment, a new school, newer students, he'll dispense a new quiz. Finished, he says. Okay, gang, it's now 2:57. Sit tight for the 3 p.m. bell. Mr. Skit takes one last peek out the window and doesn't see the custodian. The hallway empties. He relaxes. What you looking at, said Mr. Skit. At Mr. Skit, says Rachel Mendez, twirling a pigtail in her mouth. I guess it was nothing. I thought I saw somebody. Chittering! Kids burst through the double doors, desperate for fresh air. Mr. Skit, you wanted to see me? The task force would be neither omniscient nor foolish enough to release this non-sequential narrative to the public. Inserting hunch and fantasy, as storyteller, I composed this unique scoop for us to consider. Police profile likely perpetrators, sifting through their list. A homicide buff, but not a cop. I'm a stand-in teacher throughout LA Unified, one with an odd educational twist. I always give out, grade, and then hand back a surprise quiz. When the last class period arrives, if inspired, I write on one. 100%, my only perfect student. Please stay a moment after class. Then I administer the McAn final exam.